say, and we want to hear it. KBLA Talk 1580 is engagement radio, not outrage radio. A place where your hopes, your frustrations, and your ideas are welcome 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Real talk, real people, real Los Angeles. KBLA Talk 1580, the station that sounds like the city looks. Tune in on your AM radio dial at 1580. Download our free KBLA 1580 app or listen live on our website at kbla1580.com.
Unapologetically progressive. Keep on. Never say die. Keep on. Like this. Keep on. Never say die. Keep on. Like this. Never say die. Never say die. Keep on. Never say die. Like this. Never say
Been in the midst of sorrow, you can see up and down. Of a right of day tomorrow will bring. You hear the voice of reason telling you this can never be done. No matter how hard reality seems, just hold on to your dreams, yeah.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, your host and White House correspondent, joining you live in afternoon drive time where I'm in touch and so you be in touch. Be sure to follow me on all the socials at Dr. Nii-Quartelai. Just type in Dr. Nii-Q, DRNIIQ, and I pop right on up fresh for you to follow. Also, be sure to download the KBLA app if you haven't already. That way, you get to listen to us live or on demand, or if you're feeling fancy, feeling froggy, shall we say, just tell Alexa to play KBLA Talk 1580, and there we are for your listening pleasure. If you haven't already, subscribe to A More Perfect Union podcast powered by KBLA. That's the key, because, A More Perfect Union, it's a pretty popular phrase, pretty popular name for a radio show or a podcast, but there's no one like the KBLA version of A More Perfect Union. And so be sure to subscribe to our podcast and catch some of our most memorable interviews. All right. Now it's time for your national news roundup. But first, let me just say, during this hour, we're going to take you around the world and we're going to bring you right back home. Don't you worry. We're going to Cuba. We're going to the Congo. We're going to have a conversation about storytelling and art and what it means to build community through your voice. And we're going to end this program with one of the darkest stories in global organized crime that you may not have heard enough about. So let's go. It's time for your national news roundup. It's time for you to decide the good, bad, and ugly headlines of the day. And kicking us off, listen, for those of you who've been following my reporting since I returned from the emergency fact-finding delegation to Cuba, this next story hits really close to home. A 6.1 magnitude earthquake was reported off the western coast of Cuba. Cuba, a country already under extraordinary economic strain, a country whose people have been navigating blackouts and food shortages and continued weight of decades-long U.S. embargo. They now face a natural disaster on top of all of it. And I want to say clearly that the Cuban people have our thoughts, our prayers, and our attention. This is a moment that calls for human solidarity, full stop. And so we're going to continue to track this story and bring you updates as they develop. And from Cuba to the Congo, Ebola cases are rising in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And the government there has revived travel restrictions as health officials scramble to contain a new outbreak. Now, this is sobering. It's also not a surprise to anyone who's been watching the systemic defunding of global health infrastructure that has happened over the last year and a half. The CDC's international presence has been gutted. The World Health Organization funding has been cut. And now we're watching an Ebola outbreak accelerate in a country that's already one of the most burdened health environments in the world. When we cut the infrastructure of global health, we don't just put Congolese people at risk, we put everyone at risk. This is not an abstraction. It is called epidemiology. And now there's a new AP NORC poll, and the headline is this: fewer Americans see their country as exceptional. That's right, on the eve of America's 250th birthday, on the actual cusp of a national celebration. More Americans than ever before are saying, I'm not sure we're the greatest country in the world. And I want to sit with that for a second. Because the knee-jerk reaction on one side is, see, the left has destroyed patriotism. And the knee-jerk reaction on the other side is, well, have you seen what's happening? But I think the more interesting question is this: what does healthy patriotism look like? Can you love a country and demand better from it at the same time? And because I think the answer is yes, and in fact, I think that's the only kind of love that's serious. We are forward. Not because we think everything is fine, but because we believe this country can be better than it has been. And then in other news, Idris Elba, the Idris Elba, I think we're calling him Sir Idris Elba these days. He said in a new interview that him playing James Bond is not, quote, realistic because some audiences, his words, will not accept a black male in the role. Now, some folks may have complicated feelings about James Bond as a franchise and as a character. The politics of Bond, the history of Bond, the women of Bond. That's a whole graduate seminar. But here's what I know. Idris Elba, who I've had the chance to interview before, is one of the most talented, most charismatic, most legitimately cinematic actors working today. And he has the physicality, the gravitas, the swagger. And the fact that he himself is saying audiences won't accept it, that's not defeatism. That's a lived experience talking. And it should make all of us a little bit uncomfortable. Because if Idris Elba has made peace with the ceiling, what does that tell us about whose imagination gets to be the standard? Speaking of imagination, when we come forward, Phill Branch is going to join me. He's a regional Emmy Award winner, a Grand Slam Moth champion, a filmmaker, a storyteller, and a man who has built community through the radical act of honest narration. You don't want to miss this conversation about his latest work of art. It's called The Double Dutch Fuss. I should say what will be a New York Times bestselling book because it's that good. More with Phill when we come forward. You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Carpal tunnel syndrome, heart failure that doesn't improve with common medicines. These are some signs and symptoms associated with ATTR-CM, or the cardiomyopathy of ATTR amyloidosis, a serious heart condition with symptoms that get worse over time. Amvuttra, vutrisiran, is a prescription medicine given by a healthcare provider that treats ATTR-CM in adults to reduce heart-related death, hospital stays, and urgent visits. In a clinical study, Amvuttra was proven to help people live longer and have fewer heart-related hospital stays and urgent visits over 3 years compared to placebo. Amvuttra lowers the amount of vitamin A in your blood, which can affect vision. Other side effects include pain in the arms or legs, pain in the joints, and shortness of breath. These are not all the possible side effects of Amvuttra. For prescribing information, call 1-833-256-2748 or learn more at amvuttra.com. Ask your doctor about Amvuttra for ATTRCM.
Lena Bloom for the Bail Project.
Imagine you're stuck in a jail cell and you can't afford bail and someone offers you a way out. Just plead guilty and you can go home and kiss your kids goodnight. What do? What thousands have. You plead guilty whether you are or not. Cash bail makes poverty a crime. That's why the Bail Project helps those who can't afford it while fighting to end cash bail. Because freedom should be free.
Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Let's celebrate.
Y'all did it!
Loving each other, needing each other.
Hey, Los Angeles, KBLA Talk 1580 is turning 5, and we're celebrating in a big way.
Oh my God!
Join us Friday, June 19th, Juneteenth, 4 to 7 p.m. at the Beehive for our 5th anniversary bash and Juneteenth celebration. We're talking surprise celebrity guests, a special presentation, and a major announcement you will not want to miss.
I can't wait to hear it.
Plus, live music, dancing, games, and enough food and drink to keep the party going.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Of course, you're welcome to bring your own picnic basket, blanket, and lawn chair. And the best part, it's completely free. But here's the thing. You've got to sign up in advance. Space is limited, so don't wait. Head to KBLA1580.com right now and lock in your spot. Friday, June 19th, the Beehive, KBLA Talk 1580. 5 years strong, and we're just getting started.
Happy anniversary, KBLA!
We have no permanent friends or permanent enemies. Only permanent interests. As we effort to build a more perfect union.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, and really honored to be in conversation with Phill Branch. He is the author of this beauty right here. I'm holding it here in my hand. For the people who are streaming, you can see the Double Dutch Fuss. I mean, it looks like a beautiful work of art on the cover. Phill Branch, he is a writer. He's a live performance storyteller, a regional Emmy Award-winning filmmaker, and founder and creative director of Baltimore's Story Fest, and a proud Hampton University man, former professor who went back to build the film studies program at his alma mater. Talk about rooting for everybody Black. He's currently a resident artist at the Howard County Center of the Arts in Maryland. And as I mentioned before, he's written this book, The Double Dutch Fuss, which is a memoir that I'm telling you right now, you heard it from me right now. It belongs on the same shelf as How to Say Babylon. I'm just saying. Welcome to A More Perfect Union, Phill.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. Let me start with the title, The Double Dutch Fuss, because the title is doing so much work before you even open the first page. Double Dutch, a Black girl's game or rope game, the very game that got you in trouble with your father as a boy. Walk me into the image and what it means as the frame for this entire story.
I think as a storyteller, I've had to learn that every piece of information on any project that I do has to be thought out, whether it be the colors on the poster, the title, the framing. And for me, the title came late to the story. I built the story and under another title, something that I had been working with around this idea of feeling isolated. And then as I got into about a year into the writing, the story about that interaction with my father and him discovering that I was jumping double dutch was just sitting with me. And I thought I wanted to convey that this book was about sort of masculinity and the constraints around masculinity and how those impact us as a community. And I just thought, what better way than this game, which seems really simple and free and full of joy, um, as sort of the symbol for this thing that brought on so much pain for me in my life. So I thought it could be visual. And I thought it was something that we could all relate to without even having to explain what it might mean to a Black father of a certain time to see their son jumping double dutch.
And thank you for helping to set the table for us, and connect the dots to the title and the image on the cover of this beautiful memoir. Did you feel policed? Did you feel like your masculinity was policed by your father or your family as you were coming up?
Yes, but of course, when you're 5, you don't know what's being policed exactly. You know that you are being watched. You know that you're being noticed, and often you don't know why. It takes a while for you to figure out, oh, I'm doing something wrong, right? And I would say around 5 or 6 is when I realized that that wrong thing was I was being a boy in the wrong way, right? Had nothing to do with who I had a crush on or anything like that. It was just how I moved through the world. I was quiet, I was bookish, and I didn't want to play football. My dad was a big football guy. And these are all little signs that maybe he's not like other boys. And what I found that men did was to work double time to make you like other
Mhm.
boys. And when you're young, you're just trying to make people happy. You're trying to figure it out. Because who doesn't want to be liked, not loved? Who doesn't want to be liked by their father, right? A
Mhm.
lot of us have fathers who loved us. Um, we don't all have fathers who liked us. I wanted my father to like me. So you try to do the things that, make his eyes light up. And I did feel watched, because we are watched, you know, we are. From the minute we're in the world and they start throwing boys in blue and girls in pink and the barrettes, and you got to put earrings in her ear. People are gonna think she's a boy, and
Mhm.
like, can she turn one? Before we start worrying about, we are being policed, um, and a lot of it isn't with the intention to harm. It's just what's been passed down, what's been done before, and then but what that creates is it doesn't leave a lot of room for the individual to find themselves before you start manipulating the pieces. And yeah, that's what it was for me. That manipulation that I think we all kind of go
Mhm.
through in our families.
I mean, I really love what you had to say about, your father loving and liking you. You knew that your father loved you, but you wanted your father to like you. Can you tell us about the first encounter with your dad where that was your takeaway? Dad loves me, but he doesn't like me.
I think for me, there's sort of an error of moments, from when I was a little boy living in Newark, New Jersey, where I vividly remember seeing disappointment. Something I say in the book is that you can look in someone's eyes right away, especially as a kid, and tell if they're feeling you or not. You don't know why, you don't really have the words for it, but you know that you're doing something that doesn't get you the same attention as the other kids, right? Kids pick that up pretty easily. I'm not, there's something off. And I remember being really young, the football incidents, like with him wanting to play football with me and me not performing that as well as he wanted me to. I remember just sort of him being loud and rough, and I want to sit and read, and the thing that was confusing was they loved that I could read really early. They
Mhm.
loved that I was smart, but they also wanted me to go outside and get scratched up falling from a tree. Like they wanted both of those things, and I wasn't giving both of those things. And something I talk about in the book is not knowing the rules or not following the rules the right way. You know, I found myself often when I was young breaking boy codes or man codes that I didn't even know existed because I'm a kid, and feeling disappointed when I was letting my father down and feeling like I don't know how to be. And I don't even know why, because I'm 5 and I'm 6 and I'm 7. I
Mhm.
don't even know what's wrong, but I know something is wrong.
I mean, I really appreciate you really going there with your father in this book, in part because at its core, this is a father-son story, and
Mhm.
you describe him as this magnetic, complicated man, this football player, slash army vet, the guy that men wanted to be around, and the guy that women loved. And then there's young Phill, who he looks at and sees something he cannot accept. This is a particular kind of pain. This is not
Mm.
just a stranger's rejection. This is your father. Talk to us about how you found the language for that on the page.
Time, right? So I had to go through it. One of the things that I teach as a storyteller, as a writing coach, is that you have to be enough away from it to process it. Um, and not only for your internal pain and trauma, but also to be able to write about people who you might love deeply, honestly. Um, I've had enough distance from these moments to be able to write more fully about the experience. Um, I feel like I'm able to write this story because I don't hate my father. I think I did not want to write a story that was pointing a finger at his flaws and saying how bad of a guy he was. I think what was really important to me, and it really is music to my ears to hear you say that this is a father and son story, is that I wanted to tell a particular kind of story that I think hasn't been told. Um, one of my fears, and I was listening to the Idris Elba conversation, is about being pigeonholed and put in these boxes. And one of the things I was really explicit about with my editor, Michaela, who was amazing, was that I think this story resonates with people, whether you identify as straight, queer, whatever. It's about relationships with your parents, particularly father son. And I said, I know a lot of times books from a certain lens get relegated to 1 month of the year. It's June, it's Pride, and I said, my challenge, the thing that I challenged myself was that anybody could pick up this book and see that this book deals with certain issues, but also overwhelmingly is talking about freedom and how we love each other and the ideas around how father and son relationships have such a significant impact um, on our lives. And I was worried that people would relegate it to one corner of the bookstore. Like, this is for, but
Yeah.
what I've seen is that many of us have had these complex relationships with our fathers and have found some commonality in the stories that have shared, even if you didn't have the same walk that I had, um, that you see that people are finding some similarities in these relations. We've all, we've had experiences with our
Mhm.
parents, and in particular, for those of us who have known our fathers, from especially of a certain era, you know, um, that we're processing, and I think this book does that.
Yeah. Yeah. You also write about early inappropriate relationships with men twice your age. And I really want to ask about this with care, because what you're describing is a pattern that many queer Black boys have lived, but very few have named out loud, let alone in print. And
Mhm.
so the way that that vulnerability gets exploited before you even have the words for what's happening to you. And so talk to us about what it took to be that honest, and who were you writing for when you wrote those sections of the book?
You learn things about yourself in stages, right? So at that time, when things happened to me in high school, when I was having these moments with this particular teacher, this educator, um, at the time, I was such a problem to myself that I knew something was wrong with him, but I was still so focused on my brokenness that I couldn't step back enough to think about all of the grooming that took place for me to even feel that vulnerable with that man, right? It just felt like a paternal relationship, somebody who was coming in to be a mentor. You don't know that you're being sort of groomed for something else, right? It took me years to get to that place. Um, this particular teacher has had great relationships with many of us, right? That in later in life that I've seen people process on social media in different places. I think it took people a good decade or so to understand, oh, this guy wasn't my friend. This guy, this didn't just happen. This was planned. And I think in writing it, um, which was really difficult, I'm gonna be honest, to write. Um, in writing it, I wanted to make sure that I was not only telling the truth, but also being fair about what I was feeling, not just what he did, because I think that piece is important. It all ties back to the family unit. What I try to explain to people is that teacher doesn't get in if I feel like my family has my back. If I'm able to go home and be whole, I don't have to have that teacher giving me things that I'm not getting anyplace else. I could come home and say, hey, I think this is weird that this thing happened, and not fear that they're not going to care about the weird thing, be more focused on, are you that way? And I think a lot of us carried secrets because we were afraid to tell our parents, even the bad things, because we thought that we would still get punished for that. And I would tell you, I did my first public reading, of the book when we launched on June 2nd. And my mom is there. And I'm signing books. I'm having the time of my life. I finally made it, right? I'm signing the books. I'm having a good time. And my mother looks at me and she says, because she's listened now to like 3 or 4 chapters by this point, and she says, why didn't you tell me? We're in the front of the book. She says, why didn't you tell me? We're in this full bookstore, sold out, and we're having this moment at the podium to ourselves. And I said, I was a kid. I didn't know I could. And I could see the heartbreak in her. But I think I tell it because I want parents to know that it's not just about you wanting your kid to be a certain kind of way to shape and form them. When you make them afraid to be themselves, they're not going to tell you things. You're sending them out to the world, to these people who know that they're not going to tell you. And I will say that the world has changed quite a bit. And as a professor at Howard and at Hampton, it has warmed my heart to see people be a little bit more true to themselves.
Yeah.
And maybe we're seeing a little bit less of that situation. But yeah,
We're gonna pick up that thread when we come forward, specifically about Hampton. This is where your story turns, because Hampton is where you rebrand, as you put it, and I really love that word because it's honest about the performance of it. You didn't just heal at Hampton; you constructed a new version of yourself so that you could survive. We're going to talk more about that and more when we come forward. You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We're talking about this beauty right here, The Double Dutch Fuss, with author Phill Branch.
The audience is listening, thought-provoking, eye-opening, heart-rendering. This is where authentic voices meet powerful discussions on culture, community, and change. This is where Black voices matter. He's breaking boundaries, amplifying diverse perspectives, and tackling the issues that matter most to you. You're inside A More Perfect Union with Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Navy sailor Jeremiah Copeland, who is Black, has pleaded guilty to unpremeditated murder in the death of fellow sailor Angelina Resendez. Resendez disappeared from Naval Station Norfolk in May 2025 and was found dead 11 days later in Norfolk's Broad Creek area. The Chicago Bulls are mourning the death of former player and broadcaster Stacey King, who passed away at 59. King, who was Black, was drafted by Chicago in 1989 and was part of the Bulls' first 3 championship teams in the 90s. He later became a longtime TV color commentator and won an Emmy for his broadcasting work. And singer Lizzo is still fighting a lawsuit filed by 3 former backup dancers who accused her of sexual harassment and creating a hostile work environment. Lizzo denies the allegations, and a judge has dismissed the fat-shaming claim. She's now focusing on her music and recently performed her new song, Don't Make Me Love You, on Rockefeller Plaza. Get BIN News now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Wild Rivers is now open daily with over 25 slides and attractions for thrill seekers and lazy river chillers. Visit wildrivers.com for great values on season passes and daily tickets. That's wildrivers.com. Wild Rivers, where there's sun and fun for everyone.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The first NBA Finals game in New York City since 1999 helped raise $1 million in a charity auction for 2 seats in the VIP celebrity section. 2 executives at a New York law firm combined to donate the $1 million for seats at tonight's Game 3 between the Knicks and San Antonio Spurs at Madison Square Garden. The money went for a good cause to the Garden of Dreams Foundation, a charity that helps underprivileged children in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. 6 new members of the Black College Football Hall of Fame were inducted Sunday in Atlanta. Alabama State head coach Eddie Robinson Jr., former Fort Valley State cornerback Tyrone Poole, former Bethune-Cookman free safety Nick Collins, former Jackson State wide receiver Jimmy Smith, former Florida A&M coach Rudy Hubbard, and NFL Network reporter Steve Weiss, an alumnus of Howard University. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
You have something to say, and we want to hear it. KBLA Talk 1580 is engagement radio, not outrage radio. A place where your hopes, your frustrations, and your ideas are welcome 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Real talk, real people, real Los Angeles. KBLA Talk 1580, the station that sounds like the city looks. Tune in on your AM radio dial at 1580. Download our free KBLA 1580 app or listen live on our website at KBLA1580.com.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The BLM Center for Black Power is a hub for Black activism in the city of Los Angeles, a standalone nonprofit affiliated with Black Lives Matter LA. The venue is home to live events, meetings, and organizing drives for Black-led community-based organizations. It is also the base of operations for Black Lives Matter LA. Built on what used to be a nuisance property owned by an arms dealer, the BLM Center for Black Power is in the heart of Leimert Park and has opened its doors to everything from youth organizers to toy drives to film screenings and community town hall meetings. To make a donation or make a request, please visit blmla.org. That's blmla.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
All I need is one mic.
With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavish Smiley. It's high time that we say the quiet part out loud about what we consider a disgrace, an absolute disgrace to the people of South Los Angeles. Destination Crenshaw, or as I call it, Procrastination Crenshaw, was supposed to be a 1.3-mile celebration of Black Los Angeles. Pocket parks, commissioned art, a cultural corridor along Crenshaw Boulevard, stretching from our studios in Leimert Park down to Nipsey Hussle Square. It was set to complete in 2022. That's right, 2022. We are now in 2026, and the Crenshaw community is still waiting. A grand opening was announced for February 2024. That date passed with not a single artwork installed. Then we were promised that construction would be completed by the end of 2024. That date came and went. Our understanding is that as of last fall, the 8th Council District Office was still scrambling to raise additional monies just to restart the project, which has been paused again and again. But here's what makes my blood boil. City officials had the nerve to tell this community the delays are, quote, a necessary inconvenience, close quote. A necessary inconvenience? First of all, who are you talking to? Second, Go tell that to the Black business owners who have been coping with construction chaos, breathing dust, enduring years of road closures, and the scarcity of available parking, confronting unsanitary conditions, losing customers and revenue, all while the project they were promised still sits unfinished. They wouldn't let a project sit this long in any other part of this city. And for what it's worth, our elected official just happens to be the president of the LA City Council. Meanwhile, the city is laser focused on sprucing things up for the World Cup and the Olympics. Please, if this corridor were in Brentwood or Beverly Hills, it would have been completed on time, on budget, and on the cover of every magazine in town. The Crenshaw community deserves better. They deserve the truth, and they deserve what was promised to them. Now, right now. Not when it's convenient, not when the cameras are rolling for the Olympics. Now, this isn't incompetence. This is a pattern. And at some point, neglect becomes a decision. With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley. As always, we welcome your feedback.
National News The Consequence. Informed opinion. And analysis beyond the headlines. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm delighted to be in conversation with Phill Branch. Phill Branch. He is the author of The Double Dutch Fuss. That's what I'm holding in my hand here for people who are streaming us. You should know that you have to take my word for it. There are a number of folks we're in community with, a number of folks who've been guests on the show that have issued advance praise for this book right here. I'm talking about Sheryl Lee Ralph, who says The Double Dutch Fuss stands as a testament to courage, growth, and the healing power of storytelling. Roy Wood Jr., who's the author of The Man of Many Fathers, he says, quotes, when wielded responsibly, humor can heal and also educate. Branch exhibits this ability with great profundity as he shows us how fathers shape us, even when they don't know how to love us well. Those are two heavy hitters, and they aren't mincing words. Congratulations to you for
Thank you. And I read Roy's book, The Man of Many Fathers. It's incredible. And there were so many through lines that reminded me of my own story. So it was really great to get that blurb from him.
Yeah. And you know what else is really great is your commitment to Hampton University. And before the break, I mentioned that you didn't just heal at Hampton. You constructed a new version of yourself that could survive. As a professor who later went back to Hampton, what did you think that the institution gives young Black people as they can't get from anywhere else? So what exactly does it demand of young Black people that maybe needs to be interrogated a bit more?
I think what I saw as a student and as a professor on the positive side is this tremendous sense of community that that just sort of put people together and creates these bonds that will last for a lifetime. And I think there's this sense, and I really am big on this, that in some institutions, not just HBCUs, but you hear it's like you're overcoming. It's the narrative is always overcoming. There's something about being someplace where your shoulders are relaxed and you just believe that you can do the thing. And you're surrounded by people who look like you, who want to do the thing too, and they're still cool, and they still hang out. They still do. They're just kids. They're just young people men and women trying to do the thing. And I think that gives you so much power to be surrounded by that. I know it did for me, and I think as a professor, looking at my students, that piece filled me with pride. But I will say that one of the other pieces that I think Hampton taught me is the importance of resistance. I tend to run my mouth and I don't know, and say what I have to say in certain instances. So when I came back as a professor, there were certain things that I love about the university, but there's certain things that I saw that I had to felt like, I saw myself in some of my students and I had to protect them. And you know, I don't know what I'm doing at the time other than what it feels right to do to kind of put these students in a frame of mind that they belong on campus like anybody else and, to make your own way to think for yourself. But when I fast forward, now these kids are in their 30s, early 30s, to have them come back and tell me things that I said to them and things I did for them that let them sort of be a little bit freer in whatever capacities. Um, has really just sort of warmed my heart and just you know it feels good in that way. I think that's what in some ways that's what the story is about too. It's about growth. Things don't stay in the same place. Hampton has two LGBTQ organizations on campus. That wouldn't have been imaginable in the 90s.
Yeah.
you know
How many?
Two
A whole,
different ones.
I mean, a whole two.
Two.
I'm with you. Hat tip. That is a major achievement.
Yeah. Yeah, that wouldn't have been possible. And along with other leaps that I saw the university make. But I think the biggest thing for me, Hampton is a fairly conservative university,
Mhm.
and not so much politically, but socially. And what I love is that I see now students are really saying, you know what, I get to have the education, the knowledge piece. I get to still show up as myself. And I think that's such an important thing. I'm going to say something. So, I'm surrounded by people who love to do certain kinds of service work
Mhm.
that to me often feels like respectability, sort of brainwashing. So,
Mhm.
um, it is good for me to see students showing up as they are. If you want to wear a tie, wear a tie. If you want to wear those high heels and the blue suit, go for it. But if you don't, and you want to wear your locks and you want to do whatever, do that too. And I think we're seeing more of that. I think that's so important, especially as people are coming into themselves to not tell them, you're not going to find a job if you don't look like this. They're too young for that. You can give them information about what's going to be out there facing them in the world. But I would argue that most people have an understanding of that already by the
Yeah,
time they get to Hampton.
yeah, and you really you described the double Dutch fuss as being the quotes quiet radical act of choosing to exist on your own terms, and I want to hold that phrase quiet and radical in the same sentence because we often think of radicalism as loud, as marching, as confrontational, but there's a kind of radicalism that happens in private. I think that's really what you're getting at. That
Yep.
happens in the decision to not perform, to not shrink, to not be who your father needed you to be, or who the industry needed you to be, or who the community needed you to be. Is that where you are now? Have you gotten there, or is this still a daily negotiation?
It is still a negotiation to an extent because I'm always learning something about myself. I'm in the publishing industry. I have a book out with a big five publisher. I'm learning how to navigate that, right? Most of my work has been done independently, you know. So when you're dealing with a big corporation and different stakeholders, again, you find yourself in a position, and luckily I work with some amazing people where you still have to make sure you're showing up as yourself, so that, the story that gets out is the story that you want. And thank goodness I worked with a team that was hearing me about certain things um, that I was saying. And I think you just have to always be kind of mindful. I could have easily gone into this situation saying, hey, this is a big deal. Let me just do what they say, because they gave me this ticket, this golden ticket to this new world.
Mhm.
But I came in like, okay, let's see if this works. This is the story I want to tell. This is how I want to tell it. Um, and this is the ways I want to promote it and market it. And these are the people who I want to talk to. And the answer has been yes, 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 yes. And just let us know what you need. There will be a time where maybe you don't say that because you think you have to be a certain
Mhm.
way to be in certain spaces. And I think That is the message. I think people think you have to bang the drum every time you're trying to make some kind of radical change. Sometimes it's just saying no, like internally, and making a different choice. As a professor, I often had to, my personality is laid back, but so people think they
We
can,
can't tell, Phil. We
yeah,
can't tell.
and people think you can just push you around, you know, and they find out that that's not the case,
Yeah.
so I think that is a really big part of the book, is this idea of do it for yourself, whatever it is, make that change for yourself and let other people deal with it how they have to deal with it.
I mean, talk about a radical idea, doing it for yourself. My goodness. I really want folks in our remaining minutes, Phil, to be clear that this book isn't, just heavy. It's actually surprisingly humorous. And I think that surprises people who hear the subject matter when they hear queer identity and patriarchal violence and complicated fathers. They expect it to be heavy all the way through, but humor is a survival technology, especially in our culture and Black culture, and especially for people who've had to navigate spaces where their full selves were not welcome. And so, talk to me about the role of humor in this memoir and in your storytelling more broadly.
Storytelling, I came to live performance storytelling after a breakup, is where how I processed the breakup. I got on stage and talked about it instead of going to therapy. And it was amazing. It introduced me to a new craft, a new way of being as a storyteller. And humor was a big part of that, in part because I wasn't done healing. So I got to tell these hard stories, but because which is really kind of sometimes surprising to people, because I'm so laid back when I get on stage, it's different. I'm still laid back, but I'm really funny. But I was telling these rough stories in this really laid back way with humor, and it worked for me. And I translated a lot of that into my early essay writing. But when I got to the book, one of the things that I had to be very careful with was that I wasn't burying any of the emotional truth under humor, but I wanted to maintain that lightness because it's kind of how I process things through humor. And I wanted that to come through in the book. So one of the first rejections I got for the book was that he's a storyteller. We don't know that he can do a long form piece. I've seen him, he's funny, but I don't know if he can maintain the depth for an entire book. And I heard that and I thought, the challenge became for me was not only to write the book, but to maintain that storyteller voice where I can talk about important subjects and kind of take you there, but also still be me and have some fun with it and laugh, because I didn't want someone crying and feeling thrashed about for 300 pages and just feeling broken. I wanted people to get a little laughs and feel something. But I also didn't want to make it so that I was burying my truth under the humor as well.
Well, Phill Branch, this has been one of those conversations that I'm going to carry with me. I want to thank you for the courage that it took to write this book and for bringing it to our audience of leaders, learners, and listeners today. The Double Dutch Fuss. Write that down. Get it. Give it to somebody who needs it, and follow Phill Branch wherever he goes next, because he's not done. He ain't even close to being done. This ain't just a book. This is a movement that's brewing. And I love that about you. I love that about this work.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. Music to my ears, man.
Absolutely. When we come forward, we close the show with a story about slavery in the digital age. Enslaved workers forced to defraud Americans online from the other side of the world. We're not looking away. You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you.
Striving to make America a nation as good as its promise. This is A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
LADWP customers get rebates up to $1,500 when you install a qualified electric vehicle charger at your home. It's like having a gas station in your garage. Get extra savings when you combine LADWP rebates with federal tax credits on chargers installed before June 30th. Visit ladwp.com/EV today and start saving. That's ladwp.com/EV. Going to a World Cup match in LA this summer? Ditch the parking stress and ride Metro. With direct service from across LA County, it's the easy way to get there for just $1.75 each way.
All I need is one mic.
With the KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm James Farr. $2.5 billion. Governor Gavin Newsom said it was there for fire survivors in Altadena and the Palisades. No strings attached. That was the promise. But the burning question is, where's it at? 18 months later, an NBC4 investigation came back with the numbers. The numbers don't answer the question, they deepen it. Where's it at? About $605 million has been spent, roughly 75% still not released. Where's it at? Roughly $14 million went to CHP overtime and ICE immigration protest response for crowd control. Not rebuilding homes, not rebuilding lives, but crowd control. Where's it at? Another $13 million went to the state health department for video campaigns while fire survivors waited. While families in Altadena are still trying to put their lives back together, still trying to get housed, this is the hope gap and it's real. Where's it at? Southern California Edison is still in court, still fighting liability tied to the Eaton fire, still not accountable. Where's it at? 18 months later, Governor Newsom, where's it at? Because the truth is free, but the lie can be very expensive. And right now, fire survivors want to know what happened to no strings attached. And I've been saying on this mic for the past 18 months, somebody or somebodies didn't do their job. Now it's documented. Governor Newsom, listen closely. You didn't do your job. You didn't keep your promise. You held up the bill. Now stop holding up the money. You said no strings attached. Instead, you played on the people's heartstrings. Where's it at? See, Governor Newsom, even at the French Laundry, if it don't come out in the wash, it's sure enough gonna come out in the rinse, and the rinse cycle is here. With the KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm James Farr, and as always, we welcome your feedback.
Notable journalists, industry leaders, lawmakers, change makers, tastemakers, and you, working to build a more perfect union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey. And again, I hope you all really enjoyed today's show. I hope you have enjoyed, some of the beautiful words of Mr. Phill Branch, who is the author of this gem right here. It's called The Double Dutch Fuss. Run, don't walk to pick this up. I mean it. Run, don't walk to pick this up. This is good stuff. This is good stuff here. All right. So we are coming to a close, and I want to be honest with you. I've been thinking about how to talk about this story since I, put it in our rundown for our show this morning. NBC News has published an investigation, and I mean a real investigation, inside what they're calling the world's scam capital, a place in Southeast Asia where workers are trafficked, enslaved, and forced to sit at computers and defraud Americans online. Let me say that again. Enslaved workers forced to run internet scams targeting you, your grandparents, your neighbors, people who got a text that seemed real, a call from someone who sounded like they needed help. This is not the Nigerian prince email joke. This is an organized, brutal, multi-billion-dollar criminal enterprise that's built on human trafficking. The people running these scams from their keyboards, many of them, are victims themselves. They were lured to these compounds with promises of jobs. Their passports were taken. They're told, defraud people or suffer. And the targets on the other end, disproportionately elderly, disproportionately lonely, disproportionately the people in our community who trusted a voice on the phone. This is a story with victims on both sides of the screen, and it demands that we think clearly about how global crime, human trafficking, and digital exploitation are all part of the same system. What can you do? Be a resource for the elders in your family. Have the awkward conversation. If someone calls you and asks for gift cards, hang up. That's not rude. That's love. Check in. Pay attention. And support the organizations doing anti-trafficking work on the ground. And be on the lookout. Keep your head on a swivel. That's our show for the day. We've covered ICE hiding deaths, a judge standing up for visa workers, $500 million of World Cup money, LA making history, well, maybe. And we talked about the power of a Trump endorsement and what it means when it doesn't close the deal. We also talked about 2.7 million people nearly declared dead by their own government. We talked about food, reparations, Black farmers, and whether the political scandal has finally lost its teeth. We went to Cuba, to Congo. We sat with Idris Elba's truth. And we were moved, genuinely moved by Phill Branch, the author of this beauty right here, The Double Dutch Fuss. That's 2 hours of this. That's a more perfect union. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey. And you all know you can always ride along with us Monday through Thursday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific right here on KBLA Talk 1580, the only Black-owned and operated talk station west of the Mississippi. Find us everywhere you get your podcast. Share this episode with someone who needs to hear it, and come back for more tomorrow. My thanks to the entire village helps us produce a more perfect union each and every day. Our executive producer, Tavis Smiley, our sound engineer, brother Andy, our show producers, Art Sears and Faraji Muhammad, and each and every one of you. We love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. You've been listening to and filming. You've been listening to and streaming. Maybe you've been filming. I don't know. But you've been listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
A lawsuit filed by 3 former backup dancers who accused her of sexual harassment and creating a hostile work environment. Liz